How you doing, friends? Ernie here, and this is 0 Days to Expiration. It is Friday, January 20th. And as far as podcasts go, this series always gets turned into, or usually turned into a podcast episode, which is available on Apple iTunes or Apple Podcasts and Amazon and Spotify and all the other things. So yesterday we had an interesting episode where we talked about ChatGPT. And today we're going to continue that talk about how to use ChatGPT. I don't know why that is such a hard thing to say because it doesn't roll off the tongue very easily. ChatGPT. All right. I got to practice it. Anyways, ChatGPT is a AI chatbot that it's a conversational artificial intelligence. GPT, I think, stands for generative predictive text. Basically, what that means is that you prompt it with something and then it figures out what's the thing that should logically follow that text. I know that sounds so rudimentary. However, it is really an incredible tool because it can generate just about anything that you desire. Of course, putting in the correct prompt is really an art form. You can say the simplest things that would provide a response, but it really wouldn't help. Now, before I do this, I want to see whether or not I can actually get into ChatGPT, because it could be that I was really worried that I was going to get locked out because I was locked out just a little while ago. All right, so I'm logging in right now so that we can assure that we have access to this, because today we are going to use ChatGPT to create a strategy for us. And it's having me log in. Let's see if I can bring this over here. Hold on. That's all good. You're probably wondering why I'm spending so much time here with ChatGPT, seeing that I did a whole show on it yesterday telling you what it was all about and then did some demonstration stuff. Today we're going to work on that and do something completely off the cuff. Completely. And we'll start from something. All right, where am I here? There we go. This is going to be the future. There's no doubt about it. But those people who will really be able to make use of this really incredible tool are those that can interact with it the best. And like I said, it's an art form, but not really. It's just a matter of understanding what it's looking for and how it was programmed and what are some of the best ways to interact with it. And I don't think that there's like an official guide to do that. I think people are discovering this as they go along. I think that even the creators of the technology aren't exactly sure how everything works and how all of the tendrils and connections are made and how they actually produce the outputs that they do. But they do. So that's really cool. Anyways, yesterday I showed some interesting stuff, how I could add some prompts and then I would get some response and the extent to which I could create stuff. Now, I started off with something to do with trading psychology and looking at creating a trade process, etc., and journaling. And I'm going through it all right here. Let me see if I can bring that over for you. I started with this very, very simple prompt. I said, act as if you were the trading coach and psychologist that was tasked with keeping me on track with my process and strategy. And so that's sort of setting up what you call an avatar. An avatar in marketing is your ideal customer. And so you would define what your ideal customer is, right down to their age, sex, what they do, what they like, what they don't like. And really, you're defining a real person as your ideal customer. And so then in a marketing program, they'll use that avatar to try to gear their program towards what you believe is your ideal customer. Hopefully that is your ideal customer. Hopefully you know who your ideal customer is. Now, in ChatGPT, it works much the same way. If you want to get the best out of it, if you want to get true intelligence out of it, you need to set it up and give it the avatar of what it will be when it responds to you. So, like you can see with this initial response, this initial prompt that I put into it, I said, hey, I want you to be like a trading coach and a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I don't know. What's the better interactive, maybe even a therapist? I don't know. Do traders use therapist? I don't. But certainly a coach or a mentor. I didn't put mentor in there. Maybe mentor would have helped too. But I could have gone a little bit more specific and say that, hey, your expertise is in this and this, right? So that it will then orientate itself and shape its answer around all of that, right? Hopefully that makes sense. And I think, is there a way that, let's see. Oh, yeah. Look, I can put myself down in the corner like that so that you know that I'm still here. Hey, there's ChatGPT right there. Okay. So I'm going to start. First of all, I have all of this stuff that I put in here. And because I brought it up again, it has now loaded that in. And it remembers everything that I've said. And even though I did this yesterday, so I've reloaded it and it's primed now. Now, we'll have to turn this off here. That was a spam call. How does it know that it's spam? So it's primed now with what I was looking for was things that could assist me as a trader, trade journal, playbook, process, that sort of thing. But today, what I want to do is I want to ask it to help me develop a strategy and put it out on black and white so that I can refer to it, or a of some sort that would help me improve that strategy over time. Because here's the situation. If you're, most people that are watching this, they trade. You trade, right? Why else would you watch this unless you like the blue background or Bob? You like me to punch Bob. That's why you're watching it. So most people are watching this because they're interested in trading. They want to hear somebody that has different ideas and maybe they can learn something. Great. What we do here is a coaching and mentoring service where we teach people the essentials of how to become an independent, consistently profitable professional trader. The camera's up here. I gotta up. Sorry about that. So ultimately, that's what we strive to do here, and that is to get people engaged with this process, because that is really the pathway to becoming a consistently profitable, independent professional trader, and that is to get on the path and understand what that path is, and then create a kind of continuous improvement loop that would help you review your trades on a consistent basis and have activities or maybe these sort of personal ceremonies in an agile like continuous improvement process. And every week you get a little bit better and better. And hopefully that will result in some level of consistency because you're on this continuous improvement. So that's it. But so how do you get into it? Maybe what I do, and how would I ask ChatGPT? Now, everything that I'm doing here is not scripted. I have no idea what I'm going to do here. I'm just stating what the problem is and then show you how I would go about interacting with this tool so that it can give me the answers that I'm looking for. Now, one thing that I have, like I said, started off with is I added a bunch of prompts. We'll go through the prompts so that you can see what the context is. And then I won't go through all the content, but because we did that yesterday. As I said, the very first part was I wanted it to act as if it was a trading coach and psychologist. And I might also say that maybe you should be a mentor as well and an expert in trading options or zero DTE options and an expert trading butterflies, because that's what we do. And maybe even say, hey, you're also an expert at trading methodologies and process and also agile processes. That would be really cool. So that's what I'm going to tell it. Let's first go through some of these other prompts. Like right here, I asked it, here, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. I said, create an outline of a framework I can use to develop my process and plan. So it did all that. I need a framework or process for identifying bad habits and fixing them with good habits. So it did. And then I said, well, take step 6 of that framework up above and develop a specific guidebook for continuous evaluation and improvement. So it came up with this outline of what that might look like. And then I said, how can I identify patterns in my progress? Give specific examples. And so it started getting on this whole idea of creating a journal, creating a habit tracking chart, analyzing your calendar, all of this stuff. All great ideas. Now, how's it coming up with all this stuff? Now, all I did initially was tell it, hey, that you're an expert at, you're a trading coach and psychologist, and you're helping me do all this stuff. Now, give me a brain dump of what you know about that stuff, right? And so it even gave me an example of what a habit tracking chart might look like. Here's another one where I said, create an example of one that would track my trading behaviors and process. I'm a day trader. And then I said specifically, I'm a day trader trading 0DT options on the SPX using I misspelled. It should have been OTM butterflies, not OPTM butterflies. So it used OPM butterflies in there. Probably saying, what the hell is an OPTM butterfly? But it put it in there, and it created an example of what this tracking mechanism might look like. What other tools could I use to track my behavior? And it went on: journaling, tracking apps, spreadsheets, mind mapping, video recorders. I use mind mapping, by the way. I use video recording, obviously. Emotion tracking, that would be interesting. I don't know what that is, but that would be interesting to see what that is. And reviewing trade history, all of these, great. And each one of these things, you could dive into it in greater detail. And that's generally what I do, how I introspect this. And what I haven't done is gone back and tried different things, or looked at other aspects of what it had identified as possible tools and apps and processes. That's what we're going to do today. So then I went into some pretty torrid detail here, saying my day trades usually consist of 2 20 to 30 wide SPX OTM butterflies. Now, this is being very specific. I don't know how much of this it was actually taking in when it considered, but I think it did. One above the market, one below the market. They each have a debit of 1/10 the cost of the width of the spreads. Going into detail here. I enter these soon after the market opens. I manage the trades in 3 separate time periods. I gave it the time periods. And I need a journaling framework that keeps track of my trades and grades my entries, management criteria. 1, market condition, quality of entry, my mental state. The grade should be simple like ABC or 1, 2, 3. Create a template for such a journal and process for keeping it. So it created this template, right? And then it created an example of filling out the template. Pretty cool, right? Now, I could go further and say, look, I really want to create a trade log, right? Can you help me build a trade log in Excel? Or can you help me develop a web application that would keep track of my trade log? You could do all of that, right? It all depends on just how far you want to go with this. You could recreate this. I could take my own personal trading trade log and then add some columns to this, because most of the stuff I already have, and some of the stuff, it's not totally complete. But anyways, great stuff. Then I said, create a simple prescriptive method for entering a trade after the market opens based on my description. And so it did. So this is pretty right on. This is what we do every morning. Sometimes it doesn't finish its thought, and so you have to say continue, and so it continues and finishes it. And then I said, create an end of the week process for evaluating the trades taken during the week, accumulating trade log statistics and journal grades. Assemble the best examples of trades onto a template for inclusion into a playbook that keeps and organizes all the best trades. Organize the playbook by the grades given to each trade for that journal. So it did. It created this process, right, that I should go through. And I said continue because it stopped. It's kind of like me at home. My wife asks me to do something. I get halfway through it, and then I get distracted, and she has to come over and say, "Hey, did you finish that thing for me?" Only if she could just type into my head, continue. I said, in reference to tracking apps, can you identify some tracking apps for me? Now, consider that this only knows what's out there up until right through 2021. So it doesn't know 2022, what happened there, or what happened in the first month of 2023. And I'm sure that there are other apps that came out that may top these apps. Maybe, I don't know. But so you have to consider that. Now, maybe when ChatGPT or OpenAI comes out with the next version, they'll be able to come up with a an updated version, or maybe one that looks at real-time results in the internet. I don't know how it would do that. Maybe it would interface with, I don't know, Microsoft Bing or Google or whatever, and do its thing. I said Microsoft Bing only because I know that Microsoft is an investor in this, and also Elon Musk is an investor in this. So it's probably going to be a competitor to Google. All right. So it came up with all these different apps that are out there, like a trade journal. That's very generic, but Evernote, I'm very familiar with that. It's been around forever. Journey, I'm not familiar with that. Day One, I'm familiar with. This is a journaling app that you can have on your phone or on your desktop. Toggle, I'm not familiar with that. Rescue Time, I don't know. Or Reflectly. So these are all worth like looking at. Maybe it could give me I don't know, a short tutorial on how to use one of these in the context of tracking my in the context of tracking my trades. Hey, let's ask it that. I'm going to say you recommended a journaling app called Day One. How give me a tutorial on how I could use Day One to journal my trades. Keep in mind that I day trade SPX 0 DTE options and use an agile continuous improvement process and play. All right, here we go. It's thinking. This is the January 9th version. So this version is only 11 days old. So it says install the app, create a new entry, add details on the entry, use the entry to add details about your trade, such as trade type, entry price, exit price, profit loss, and any notes about the trade or your thoughts. Sorry, I can't complete the response. Let's see. Can I get it to complete it? Important to note that this plan is based on the assumption that you're using an out-of-the-money butterfly with a debit that is 1/10 the cost, and then blah, 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 blah. And also important to review your progress regularly and make, okay. Oh, I think it got clamped there. I'm going to say continue. So this is interesting because it couldn't continue. We're experiencing exceptionally high demand. Please hang tight as we work on scaling our systems. There was an error generating my response. Okay, so this is a free tool. Totally free. All right. And so it still has my question. And so I'm going to see if I can, unable to load history, retry. All right, so there's the history again. Let's see if we can reload the chat bot. All right, and then we'll ask this question again and see if it will do anything. I got this far last time. I think it's really about where you are in the queue, because there's millions of people using this right now. And in the beginning, when I first started using this, all the answers were snappy, snappy, snappy. But so many people now have gone online and are using this that it's just bogging it down. It must be mind-blowing, especially at this time of the day. It's getting near the afternoon and people are at work and they're probably trying to make it look like they're busy in front of their desk. And so they make it look like they're actually working. And so they're busy typing away on the computer like this. And the boss comes by and looks over their shoulder and says, "Oh, good, you're working. Oh, very good. Bonus for you." Yeah, so it got a little bit further. Yeah. Sorry, I can't complete the response. I'm going to say, boo. What would the ideal answer have been? Oh, well, maybe we can't continue with ChatGPT today. I wasn't sure of this, so that's why I warned you at first. I wasn't sure whether or not I could actually get into it. But I'll say that once you start developing a knack for developing your avatar, it makes a huge, huge difference, the quality of the response that you get. And I've generated all kinds of stuff. Maybe spent a little bit too much time with this. I don't know what too much time is, because it's a tool that for the initiated, for the person who really understands their craft, that understands exactly what they want and just needs some help organizing and putting together something that's cogent that you can then build on top of. Because, quite frankly, my brain is scattered. Look, I've got 62 years under my belt. I've done a lot of different things in my life, incredible amounts of experience in all kinds of areas. I've forgotten more things than I can remember. Or, as a matter of fact, sometimes I go back and I look at some of my old work and or CVs or whatever, and I go, "Oh yeah, I remember I did that back in '87. Yeah. Oh, and then in '93 I did that. Oh, yeah, yeah. And then in 2002 I did. Oh my God, I can't believe I forgot that." And my history goes all the way back to the '70s. So there's a lot of crap that I've done. Let's see. Jacob's saying that ChatGPT cost is 2 cents per query. That's more than 7 times the cost faced by Google on searches. That's interesting. I didn't know that they had published the general cost, because I know that they're using, I believe, the Azure framework and renting computing time from that, and that's what ChatGPT is running on, I think. And so I guess that's what the cost is there. Now, Microsoft just recently pumped in another $1 billion into the company, so I'm sure that they have some kind of thing going on there. And they're all trying to figure out how they're going to monetize this, for sure. So if it is only 2 cents per query, then I've probably used a couple of $100 worth of queries so far, I would suggest. And I would think that the quality of the queries that I've put in are probably a step or two or three above what most people are putting in. I'm not saying that I'm some super genius or anything like that. I just know that most people are just putting in garbage in there and just getting garbage out. But I've been spending a lot of time trying to craft my prompts so that I can get what I want. And I've been getting some really amazing stuff. Is saying, I wonder what ChatGPT will give you if you ask what it will be the closing price of SPX today. But it doesn't know anything about today. That's the thing. However, there is a tool that I have here. And let's see. Let me see if I can find it. I don't have it here. Oh, here it is. Let's see if this will do it. I had a Chrome extension that was supposed to. Let's see. No, that doesn't do it. Well, it gave me access to it now. All right, what should I ask? All right, Jacob's saying, I think that to make this sort of AI ubiquitous, there will need to be major leap in material sciences that significantly lower the cost of the computing power, a la moving from Gen 3 to silicon. I don't know. Maybe they can give this to some of the quantum computing stuff that they have. I don't know if they have the ability to be able to program what they need to program into it, but maybe quantum computing can handle some of this neural net stuff. I really don't know. Whatever it is, they're going to figure out how they're going to create the supercomputers that they need in order to get this working for a lot of people. They're also going to put a price on it, which will immediately limit the access to people, because most people aren't going to even bother paying for this. Once you put a price tag on it, that immediately cuts out about 80% of the use. And then you're left with people that really want to use it and are willing to pay money to use it as a tool. Ask ChatGPT to make a less expensive version of itself. Okay, we'll ask that. Hey, I hear each query to you cost about 2 cents. Is there a way to reduce that cost? All right, there are a few ways to reduce the cost of using a language model like mine. Use a similar model. Larger models like mine have more capacity and can generate more accurate responses, but they also cost more to use. Smaller models are cheaper to use, but may not be as accurate. Cache common responses. If you frequently ask the same question or a similar question, you can save the response and reuse it instead of sending the request to the model each time. Use a single request to generate multiple responses. My API allows you to generate multiple responses in a single request. This reduces the number of requests that you need to make and can save you money. Optimize the input data. If you are using a large amount of text as input, you can try to summarize or extract to the most relevant parts before sending it to me. Use lower API tier. Some API providers offer different pricing tiers with lower costs for lower usage. Use pre-trained models. There are many pre-trained models available, such as on Hugging Face, which are often available for free at a lower cost. How's that for an answer there, Mr. Void? Yeah, cache responses is the major savings point. That's probably true. I would say that distributing the questions, depending on the type of question it is, distributing it to different models might be another way that they can, and have a master slave type model or a tuple space where they have a number of these ChatGPT instances that are set to, that will hand off the type of query to these different types of facilities. So that might be another idea. So JP saying in a few months, you will toss all that in the trash and continue without AI. Just a hunch. You are very good typing. No, I'm not. I'm a horrible typer. I have to look at the keyboard when I type. I can't, although I can type about 40 words a minute, but I have to look at the keyboard. The problem is sometimes I'll be typing away and then I'll look up and I'll say, shit, I just typed like 2 sentences and I didn't even insert the caret to where I wanted to type. I've been typing into air. And then I have to start all over and say, what the hell did I type? Let's see. Void Realm says, eventually all of this will run on whatever replaces cell phones in 10 years. Yeah, I don't know about that. I think that there is going to be a number of these types of generative systems, predictive systems that are going to come out. And I think that the secret is in combining them, like I said, combining them into what's called a tuple space and have them compete for the queries that come into that space. And maybe have specialized generative models that handle, like I said, certain types of queries so that it uses the most efficient model to answer the query. And then maybe also it could even build up link these services together so that it can generate even more complex answers. Interesting. Maybe I should go to work for OpenAI. See, I don't think that it's even about complexity. I think complexity might have something to do with it. However, I'm not sure that complexity of your question will actually result in complexity of the answer, because all you're really doing is you're producing a kind of skiff that is, or matrix that is being pushed into the model, and then the model comes back with what it thinks is the best response to that. And there's probably a predetermined number of tiers that it goes through before it then generates a response. It's possible that it may regenerate those responses and then go through those tiers multiple times based on the complexity of the prompt, too. So that'd be interesting to see. I have no idea. Really don't. All right. So there is such a pre-trained model as Hugging Face. I'm not sure what that is. However, let's see. I'm going to go back to this model here. And I want to get back to that question I was going to ask. See if it will finish that. All right. Help me develop a journaling training program for traders that trade PX0DTE options using the strategies and processes I listed. Let's see what happens there. I'm back to that. Oh, it's going to use day one. I think it needs to be retrained with, so that I can more effectively create the response that I want, because I don't know that I'm really interested in day one for this. What I could say is that make the journaling app generic. So this is a very generic process. I don't know if it remembers or still remembers all of this stuff that I talked about in the past. So it apparently hasn't. So it's really now working off of the information that I put in today about day one. All right. Anybody else have any other questions they want to ask GPT? Let's see. Burry says, when we figure out how to harness entanglement, he's referring to the quantum computer. All right. Nobody has any other questions. So we're going to leave it there. Needless to say that this is going to be an incredible tool. In its present form, it has a lot of great uses. It has some limitations. It really requires the operator to be a little bit creative about how they prompt it. Maybe that's where the huge opportunity is right now, is training other people how to get the most out of something like this. How coming up with little ebooks of prompts that are for specific industries that are curated with the knowledge of experts. That sounds like a great business. All right, so that just gave me an idea. I'm okay. Hey, Chat GPT, I want to create a business that uses ebooks containing curated prompts for input into your system. All right. Let's see. Now that's horrible English right there. So let's see if we can get Grammarly to fix that a little bit. No errors found. Okay. What subject? Okay. What are the most likely prompt ebooks to, what is it that I wanted to say? What are the prompt ebooks most likely to be profitable? Prompt ebooks that focus on specific in-demand topics such as self-improvement, personal development, and productivity are likely to be profitable. Additionally, ebooks that offer unique, actionable advice and guidance for specific industries or professions may also be in high demand. Additionally, ebooks that offer solutions. Okay, now I wanted to develop a process for creating such an ebook. All right, Barry Wyatt is asking, can you ask it if it thinks the quantum entanglement will contribute to improving the speed of computing and how? It probably will answer in some way, but I'm going to ask it that specific question. But I think I'm going to go with this thing right here. So research, conduct extensive research. Okay, list the top 10 prompt ebook subjects or titles. All right, so I'm going to say use these titles or use the subject from each of these books as the basis for titles for a prompt ebook. See if we can do that. All right, so it's being very specific and literal there. What I'd prefer it to do is to go out and choose the genre or the subject matter that is covered by these ebooks. And I'd have to come up with some better prompts. Obviously, this is giving me something that's very basic, but I think the idea of creating an ebook of prompts or a whole series of ebook of prompts could be a whole cottage industry. You could go out there and start soliciting experts in various fields for creating the types of questions that they would consider asking ChatGPT to elicit responses. All right. There has to be something more to it, though, something that you want to get out of each one of those various genres or topics. And maybe there's a framework for types of things that you would ask ChatGPT. And let's see. What types of things are most popular to ask of a GPT. Oh. So language translation, summarization, writing assistance. Now it's talking about Chat GPT 3. This is 3.5. So it probably doesn't know about 3.5 yet because it is of itself 3.5. So writing assistance, text completion, text classification, text generation, question answering, dialogue generation. These are all the things that I think most people are thinking about at first, but I think that getting really deep into specific topical matter. So if I were to say, what are the most popular genres or for YouTube videos? All right. List the most popular genres in YouTube videos. Yeah, I know it's a vast, but do it anyways. Music videos. So imagine a prompt engine that focused on music videos, comedy, gaming, vlogs. So what I'm suggesting is that you just go out and find what are the most popular things that most people are going to gravitate towards that they want to know the most about, and then develop an expert curated prompt library for them to use to get everything that they want out of ChatGPT. Pretty cool. So now you have something to start with. Then you'd want to think of which of these has the potential of producing the most income, which would be most valuable, which would have the highest click rate or cost per click. All right. So which of these has the highest cost per click? Because if whichever is the most valuable, that's where you want to start. Financial services. Luckily, that's what I do. Technology. See, if you're going to focus on something, yeah, you want it to be popular, but you also want it to be valuable. Healthcare, luxury goods. Now we're getting somewhere. So now we have what are the most likely candidates for our first ChatGPT prompt ebook. All right. I think I know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. All right, let's get back to the big head here. This was just way too much fun. All right, I want to thank you all for joining me. And I'm totally serious about this, by the way. I think that a prompt book, and maybe a more generic prompt book, first of all, and or within each one of these prompt books, you start with a chapter that says, hey, this is the best way in general to get the best possible answers, and you fill in the blanks. Now, here are some example prompts for this specific genre, right? And then you could start branching out into very highly specialized prompts to go down various avenues, and those could actually be quite valuable. All right, there you go. Now you have something to do over the weekend. So peace to you all. Thank you very much for showing up. Give this video a thumbs up because this was super valuable and educational. All right. Peace. Take care. Have a great weekend. And now it's time for the music.